players take the personality of how they're being coached. And I want our guys to be agile, hostile, and mobile. I want them going playing fast and playing with their hair on fire. My father always told me, you might be out athleted, you might be outsmarted, but you can never be outworked. 10% of life is what happens to you, 90% is what you do about it. That's how you handle it. A positive attitude doesn't guarantee you anything, but a negative one does. And so I try and stay positive. The last 3 to 4 years, we probably have had turnover of between 30 to 40% of our roster. There's some places that turnover is 70 and 80%. I've never tried to tell a coach he could play for you. That's their decision, not mine. But they want to know all the intangibles. How's he in the meeting room? Does he love football? And that means, is he willing to do the things he's got to do to be successful? If you say I'd have done the same thing, hell, you've gotten your ass fired again. So yeah, would I have changed some of those things? Absolutely, but not my demeanor.
First of all, this is my voice. I'm Tim Green, and I have ALS. But this podcast isn't about ALS. I don't want you to feel sorry for me. I don't feel sorry for me. I'm a father of 5, married for over 35 years, a New York Times best-selling author, an NFL first-round pick, and a practicing attorney. This is Nothing Left Unsaid, where my son Troy and I sit down with extraordinary people for raw, honest conversations about life, its toughest trials, and greatest triumphs. My voice in today's episode is powered by 11 Labs. Coach Will Muschamp is not just a football guy, he's a leader of young men, a voice in the locker room who's shaped not only plays but people. From the SEC's biggest stages to life's quiet lessons, he's seen what winning really takes, both on and off the field. Today, we're not here to talk X's and O's. We're here to talk about what matters when the scoreboard fades. Character, grit, family, and what he learned through the wins, the losses, and everything in between. Coach, thanks for being here. Let's start with this. When did you first realize that coaching wasn't just a job, but a calling?
Well, Tim, first of all, Troy, it's great to be here. Really appreciate you guys having me on. Followed you, Tim, your career, especially at the Falcons there. I was a huge Falcons fan growing up and love the way you played. You might be the only English professor defensive lineman in the National Football League ever. I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what I would think it would be. But unbelievable player, unbelievable career, and a great person. My dad was a coach and a teacher. My oldest brother, Mike, got into coaching when I was still playing at Georgia. I was a little uncertain about what I really wanted to do with my life, and you kind of start narrowing down. As my father used to tell me, you better find something you like to do and you enjoy going to work, because at the end of the day, you got to enjoy what you do. And I got a little taste of the coaching as a graduate assistant at Auburn. Back in 1995, Terry Bowden was the head coach. Wayne Hall was the defensive coordinator, that's when I knew that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to be involved in that arena, game day, the preparation, being a part of a team. Like right now, I'm not in coaching for the first time in 34 years, either a player or a coach. So, but I got a great team at home, and my wife Carol and my 2 sons Jackson and Whit, and that's my team right now. So I'm really enjoying that part of it. But I think when I was a graduate assistant at Auburn in 1995, 1996, that's when I realized this was probably a calling for me in life.
Are you coaching your home team as hard as you coach?
Well, my wife, the other day, everything for the last 34 years, I've had to do in a hurry. I'm always like, we got to be early, kid. We got to be the first guy there. This, that, the other. We got to go. And finally, she looked at me. She's like, "It's okay to calm down, Will. It's okay. We may be a little late. You don't have to be early anymore." So I have kind of grown accustomed to that a little bit, but I've enjoyed trying to lower my handicap in golf, and unfortunately I got down to about a 12. But the more you play, you got to put the scores in. I've gotten worse since then, so I'm still trying to learn. It's the hardest game there is to play, but I'm enjoying it.
You grew up in both Gainesville, Florida, and Rome, Georgia. How did living on both sides of the Florida-Georgia rivalry shape you?
Oh, wow. Well, I really grew up a huge fan of the Southeastern Conference. And on Saturdays, Friday nights, my dad was coaching. And on Saturdays, we were in front of the TV watching SEC football if we weren't in the backyard playing or having a little league game or whatever at the time. But uh, unbelievable leadership from my father and my two older brothers, Mike and Pat, to be able to, as a young man, I wanted to emulate them and be a part of what they wanted to do all the time. And my dad had some knowledge of football, so that helped me a lot growing up. But I grew up in Rome till kindergarten. Then we went to Florida for 10 years. My dad ran a school down there called Oak Hall School in Gainesville, Florida. Grew up, had tickets to all the home Gator games, grew up being a huge Gator fan. Then we moved back to Rome going in ninth grade and was a Gator fan, but I had to be a little bit of a Bulldog fan. But I broke my leg, but probably other than being a Muschamp, marrying my wife Carol, and having two great kids, I broke my leg going into my senior year. I was playing left field. I came in for a fly pop. I called the shortstop off. He fell down and he was trying to stay up, and his shoulder ran into my left leg and compound fracture tibia fibia. I caught the ball though, so we got the out and got out of the inning. But unfortunately, my leg, as I did a somersault, I came up. My cleat was 90 degrees from my leg, and so I ended up. Recruiting was so different then that you did official visits in January of your senior year. Now everybody's visiting their junior year in the spring. So it was so much later in the process. So I had a bunch of schools that were recruiting me and they quit recruiting me because I didn't think I was going to play my senior year. But then I actually ended up playing a little bit at the end. I had appointments to the Naval Academy, to West Point, some smaller scholarship offers from Furman. But your dad being a teacher, you don't got a lot, we don't have a lot of money. I couldn't really pay out of state tuition to go play somewhere. So I walked on at Georgia. A great decision, one of the best decisions I ever made. Some of my lifelong friends still there, or people that I see all the time now, especially coming full circle in my coaching career and ending at Georgia. And last year, spending our last 4 years at the University of Georgia have been phenomenal. The best run in school history, a lot of fun. But there's no question when those formative years you have growing up, being in Gainesville and being in Rome and in that Southeastern Conference environment, I loved.
As a Georgia football walk-on who then became a captain, what lesson about grit did you learn that a blue chip recruit might miss?
My father always told me, you might be out athleted, you might be outsmarted, but can never be outworked. And that was as a player and now as a coach, I wasn't going to get outworked. You might out athlete me, you might be smarter than me, but you're not going to outwork me. And that was kind of a work ethic mentality that I was brought up in, and that's what I believe to this day. And I feel like that if you continue to grind, you continue to have resiliency in what you want to do and how you want to have a resolve about things that happen. One of my favorite sayings is a positive attitude doesn't guarantee you anything, but a negative one does. And so I try and stay positive as much as I can in situations. I try to keep grinding and keep working in all those situations. And fortunately, again, I think the broken leg was probably one of the better things that ever happened to me in my life, because that was really the first sign of adversity that I had to really face, because I had been very successful athletically. I had a wonderful family, wonderful, growing up, and that was a great thing that happened to me because it was a setback and it was something that I had to learn from. It was something I had to overcome. It was taught me a little bit about adversity and about handling a situation, and it's not always what happens to you. It's how you handle it. My dad used to tell me 10% of life is what happens to you, 90% is what you do about it. That's how you handle it. And you make the choices and decisions, based on that. And that was a wonderful thing that happened to me. It was a huge setback at the time because I dreamed of playing in the Southeastern Conference. I didn't care where, I just wanted to be in the SEC. And fortunately, things worked out.
When you showed up at Georgia as a walk-on, did you think, I guess what point did you realize you could maybe become a captain and a player there, or did you show up thinking that way?
Well, I wouldn't know. I was about 2 weeks into fall practice and I broke my collarbone, so I was out my whole freshman year, which again probably was one of the best things for me because I needed to get stronger, I needed to get quicker, I needed to get faster. So I spent the entire fall working out with the strength staff. So that was again another blessing in disguise. That was something that I needed to have happen. But I thought as my freshman year, redshirt freshman year, I was on special teams. As my sophomore year, as I started to progress, I got more confidence that I could play. That I saw that I had a place there. And then at the end of my junior year, I ended up starting. And when I felt that, I think you grow as a walk on. You gain respect quickly from the scholarship players because they see that you probably don't have the same opportunities, the same number of reps, the same situation that they probably do. Because at the end of the day, as a coach now, I understand it. You've got to prove yourself right of why you signed this young man, and maybe you didn't sign this other young man. You got to prove yourself right. That's why we signed this guy. We think this guy's going to be a really good player. But I think so many things go into playing as far as the intangible qualities, the football instincts, football intuition. Those things are so important in being a good player. And obviously, you have to have the athleticism and the bulk and the size and strength and all this other stuff you got to have. But there is a place for a smart player, an instinctive player that can make plays.
Your nickname, Coach Boom, was born on the practice field. Can you tell the story of that first eruption and how you channel that energy today?
Well, I hadn't changed how I coach. At the end of the day, through the transfer portal and through NII, if you want to get your ass coached and developed, come play for me. And if you don't, then go somewhere else. That's my mentality. But I always feel like players take the personality of how they're being coached, and I want our guys to be agile, hostile, and mobile. I want them going playing fast and playing with their hair on fire, and I feel like that's the way you got to coach, and it can't be a one-time thing because the players see through that. They want to see authentic how you are as a person, and that's the way I coach. I mean, that's just nothing's changed through the changing of college athletics. Nothing's changed with me, and but I feel like you always want your players to play like their coach. And that's the way I want our guys to play.
Did you mimic that style from any? You've coached a lot of unbelievable coaches, and
Yeah.
even your dad and your brother. You said, did you get that style from somebody else, or is that?
No, it's authentic. That's who I am. That was how I was as a player, and I think that's what helped me be a little bit better of a player. Not that I was a good player, but a little bit better of a player, and certainly gave me a little bit of an edge as a coach.
I always loved it when my coach had some fire. Under Nick Saban, you paid $5 fines for busted plays. What was your costliest mistake and the lasting lesson?
Well, Coach Saban's unbelievable. He's a phenomenal coach. Obviously, his record speaks for itself. But he always reminded me when I made a bad call as a defensive coordinator. He made sure I knew that was not a very good call right there. And normally it was after the play happened, not before the play happened. So, but nah, he was phenomenal. He's great to work for. I learned so much from him. As a coach and from a recruiting standpoint, from an evaluation standpoint, from a management, from a leadership, from a teamwork, and I'm doing actually some speaking engagements now about leadership, about teamwork, about some motivational things. And a lot of that comes, from him and how we were structured in our organization, very similar to with Coach Smart at the University of Georgia. But the guy's a phenomenal coach and learned an awful lot from him.
Would he actually charge you $5 for a blown call?
No, he had enough money. He didn't need
Yeah.
any more.
Did you ever have? Was there ever like one? I guess I'm sure there's a lot of things. You guys worked together for a while, and he's such a great coach. But if there was one thing that I said, what's the biggest takeaway working with Coach Saban, or biggest lesson you learned? What would you say?
Oh wow, Troy, that's hard. I could never narrow down to one. I think he does a really good job. He never asked me to do anything he wasn't doing himself.
Mm.
And from a leadership standpoint, whether it was evaluation, whether it was with scheme, whether it was dealing with a player, whether it was on the field coaching, I mean, he was a great example of what he wanted it to look like, and he was a great example to follow as far as that's concerned. And I would say the same thing for Coach Smart. But they, they just they do a great job of working themselves, and as you're going through it with them, you feel like you're in the foxhole together. I mean, 'cause from that standpoint, from the coaching standpoint, all of those things. I think great communicator, does a really good job of detailing the jobs within the organization of what people need to do. What is your job description? What is your job, and how do you need to accomplish your job? I mean, I think those things were two of the strong factors of why he was so successful.
Do you think we'll ever see a run? And this is just a total opinion, obviously, but do you think we'll ever see a run like that again in college football? I mean, Georgia seems like they might be on it, but
Yeah, I think it's gonna be really hard. It's just so difficult now with the portal.
yeah.
Uh, within you could lose a player here, or you could gain a player here, here or there, and you and I have had a little conversation about how where we are in college football, and we don't like where we are. But I think it's just gonna be very difficult to have the consistency year in year out because of the portal to maintain to have the type team that you need to have because right now at a place like the University of Georgia, and I'm guessing these numbers, the last 3 to 4 years, we probably have had turnover of between 30 to 40% of our roster.
Wow.
There's some places that turnover is 70 and 80%. So, and you don't really ever know what you're getting. And you think you do. You've watched the tape, you've called around, you've done your research, your due diligence on a young man, but how much is he chasing a paycheck as opposed to really wanting to play competitive high level football? I
Hmm.
mean, those are things you don't really understand and know till you get the young man. Then you got to have the connection on your team. I mean, and if a player's pay doesn't equal his play, you got a problem because you got a bunch of guys on your team that have been a part of your team, and now you're paying this guy more money. You got guys in your locker room wondering, we've got the dumbest coaching staff in America. I mean, we pay this guy he can't play, and we're paying him all this money. And believe me, they all talk. You can sign all the non-disclosure stuff you want to. At the end of the day, they all know how much each other are making.
Yeah.
So it's just a very hard dynamic, and I think it's going to be extremely difficult moving forward to be really really consistent year in year out. Like Coach had his run in Alabama, and Kirby's done a phenomenal job at Georgia, best run in school history, and I expect them to be good again this year.
Yeah, I don't know how you get the to develop the talent anymore. If you're a big time recruit and you show up to Georgia, Alabama, any of those places, and they're not using you right away, there's other schools calling.
Oh, we got pirates in our league. I mean, they just come on your boat and take your players. I mean, it's amazing. Some people call it tampering. I call it recruiting. I was about 2 years ago. I won't say the school or the coach, but one of our players walked in the room. This is during the season. It was late in the season. He walked in. He goes, "Hey, Coach Muschamp, Coach so and so from so and so told me to tell you hello." Well, I didn't put it all together at first. I was kind of sitting there. I was like, "Well, why would he be talking to him?" So I said, "Well, what did he want?" He goes, "He wanted to know if I was going to go in the portal." And he goes, and I told him I wasn't. I was going to stay at Georgia. And he goes, "Well, make sure you tell Coach Muschamp I said hello." And I was like, "Okay, I see what's happening here."
He's on your he's on your tail.
There ain't no doubt. I mean, it's like pirates, man. They just come on your ship and take your players.
Yeah, that's wild. I think too, not to go too far, of course, but I think too, even the kind of old school coaching style, I think it's going to be harder to pull that off, even with the portal, until they shut it down. Because I imagine I had I played under Coach O'Leary, and I imagine you're a
Yeah,
similar style, and there's not a lot of kind words,
I know
but
Coach O'Leary very well. There's not a lot of kind words there.
but you learn. I mean, but you learn
Heck of a
lessons.
coach, though. Heck of a
Yeah.
coach.
I I say to people, I'm very open about it. Outside of my dad, I've learned, but not even close, how to be a man, responsibilities, all that stuff from O'Leary. And in 1 year, he taught me, more than anybody else. And it's that, but it's not fun at times. You look back on
No.
it and laugh, but when you're in it, man, you're in it.
It ain't funny during while it's going on, that's for sure. I always tell the players, don't listen to the tone, listen to the message. But sometimes they have a hard time hearing that.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, when I was I didn't realize this till right now, but when I was at UCF with O'Leary, our strength coach was Scott Sinclair, who
Yeah,
was with
Scott's
you
really good.
at Georgia. Yeah, another Another lunatic.
Yeah, does a fantastic job.
Oh, he gets yeah. There's a reason why his teams show up so big and strong.
That's right. He does a really good job. And I think as a head football coach, your most important hire is your strength coach, because at the end of the day, they're with them year round. I mean, right now, coaches, it's a dead period, so you can't go off campus, or young men can't come on your campus. So they're with the strength coaches, and this is the only downtime for coaching staffs right now. So they've got to decompress a little bit and get away from the team, and the team needs them to get away from them. And they're with the strength coach year round. When you're on the road recruiting in December, or used to be in December, they don't recruit anymore in December, but January when you're on the road, they're with the strength coach. So I call it the barbershop. That's where they go complain. That's where they go. At the end of the day, you got to have that reinforcement as a head coach. That's the most important hire.
My college strength coach, Mike Wysick, was one of the most impactful people on my career. Coach, in 2008, Texas named you head coach in waiting, but you left for Florida. Did that impatience help or hurt your career, and what made you pull the trigger?
Oh, wow. Well, we love University of Texas in Austin. My wife and I, Carol, and our kids were so happy there, and working for Coach Brown was phenomenal. Had a great experience, three of the best years of my life being there. But it's University of Florida. It's one of the top jobs in the country. And Jeremy Foley called me and asked me if I was interested. And obviously, I grew up 10 years in Gainesville. So I grew up in kind of an SEC guy at the time. Texas was in the Big 12. So absolutely, you got to take a shot at that job if you can get it. There were some other jobs that I didn't even interview for that had called at the time. So, Jeremy and I hit it off, and I still have a great relationship with him and everybody down at Florida. I think that at the end of the game, we just got to win more games. We our second year we won 11 and went to the Sugar Bowl. Didn't play very well, and then the next year we had some injuries and some things that hurt us. And at Florida, you going into that fourth year, you got to win. And we had a better team than our record. We needed to do a better job there. But I just feel like that. I was ready for the opportunity in my mind, and then being the University of Florida, it's hard to turn that down. But we love Texas. We loved our time in Austin. We still have great friends there. Really really enjoyed our time with Coach Brown there as well.
I hate to keep bringing up tough memories, but at Florida, after losing to Georgia Southern without them completing a pass, what did you say to your team and to yourself in that locker room?
Well, it's a difficult loss. Obviously, going in the game, them being an option team, you know, we got to stop the option. And that was not something that you see a lot. We spent a lot of time in the off season as a staff. We flew out to Air Force. It's just not something you see every day. And I always feel like as a defensive coach and a defensive player, you get very good at what you see. And that's not something we saw in all of our time at Florida. And I don't know that I've seen it since. A little bit of Wofford has a little bit of a taste of it that we played when I was at South Carolina. But, they were a very efficient team running the ball as far as that was concerned, and they didn't have to throw it. Hell, we couldn't stop the run. But tough after that game to be at Florida and lose to Georgia Southern. That's bottom line. But don't play option teams. That'd be my suggestion.
When scheduling games, don't schedule the option.
And I told them that. They didn't listen.
Why do you think the option is it just because it's so rare? It seems like it's always whenever there's the big upsets, it's always something like that.
Well, they've changed the rules now, so they're not as effective maybe as they have been because of some of the blocking rules below the waist.
Yeah.
But back then, that was all legal. You could cut, and I mean, and at the end of the day, we got a bunch of NFL guys that think they're going to go play in the NFL, and they're starting getting cut down, and we had to practice it. So they knew what was coming in the game, and we had to practice those load schemes outside, and they're going and chopping and going after guys' legs, and I mean, it's not a lot of fun to play against, but that's what gives those teams an advantage. And Jeff Monken and those guys do a fantastic job of coaching that stuff. And I knew looking at that schedule 2 years down the line, I was like, man, this is going to be tough sledding because it's just not something you see all the time. It requires great discipline to play against it. And it's just not something you see. And then the speed of the game when you get out there and those live cuts are coming. I mean, I remember one of the first plays of the game. We must have had six on the ground at one time, And I'm sitting there thinking, man, this is going to be tough sled. But we needed to score more points. Bottom line, they weren't very good defensively. As Georgia Southern normally has a decent defense, and they weren't very good that year on defense, and that's where we just couldn't score.
On that team too, you had some NFL guys, didn't you? Didn't you have some
Oh
first
yeah,
rounders?
a bunch of fronts. Dante Fowler, we
Yeah.
had several guys. John Bullard, we had several guys. It was a long day at the. As my father told me one time. It might have been that game. He said, "Son, you just had a long day at the office." I said, "Unfortunately, my office has 100,000 people in it and millions watching on TV. So when you have a long day at the office, it's a really shitty day at the office."
Yeah. Was DQ with you there? Was that where you met D?
But no, Dan and I, we hired Dan when Coach Saban took the Dolphins
Oh, that's right.
head job, and I left with Coach from LSU, and I was the defensive coordinator there. And we hired Dan as our defensive line coach. And Dan did a phenomenal job for us. We had an older group, uh, Keith Traylor, Truck Trailer. We had Jason Taylor, Vonnie Holiday, Kevin Carter. I mean, we had some just really good people. Zach Thomas, phenomenal group. I don't know that I got a true experience of what it's like to coach in the NFL just because those guys were professionals. They handled things the right way. It was a great experience for me at the time. I think Junior Seau, God rest his soul, was older than me. I think as he was like, I think I was 31 or 32, and I think he was like 33 or 34. But unbelievable, man! That guy was, man, what a player he was.
Yeah.
Uh, but but it was a great experience. Dan was with us there, and then Dan, when I got the head job at Florida, he came for our first 2 years, and then he went back to Seattle as defensive coordinator.
Got it.
He did a phenomenal job for us.
I love Dan Quinn. What a small world. Coach, you've been fired twice in the SEC, but were quickly rehired each time, showing the universal respect for you in the coaching world. How has that ride of moves affected your family?
My wife, I'm trying to remember exactly how many moves we've made, but since we've been married, we started out at I was at West Georgia when we were dating, which is in Carrollton, Georgia. Matter of fact, I've got all the helmets that I coached at.
Oh, that's
I'll show
cool.
you there all the places we've been. But we started out at West Georgia. We were dating, and then when we got engaged, I got hired to go to Eastern Kentucky and Richmond, Kentucky, which I was just there. Walt Wells is a good friend of mine. He's the head coach at Eastern Kentucky now. I went and helped him with an NIL function, but I had a great Roy Kidd, Hall of Fame coach, over 300 wins. Got to work for him there. Then Chris Hatcher, who was at Kentucky, got the head job at Valdosta State and offered me to be the defensive coordinator. I was just coaching the secondary at Eastern Kentucky, so I was defensive coordinator. And that's when we hired Kirby Smart as our secondary coach. And Kirby actually lived with me and Carol for about 6 months in Valdosta when
Wow.
we first took the job. And Kirby and I played together 1 year at Georgia. I was a senior when he was a freshman, so I'm older than him. It does not look that way. Let's make sure that gets in this recording. Uh, I look a lot younger than him, but he got a lot more pressure on him right now than I do. but but we had a great time. Hatch was great. We had a really good team. Dusty Bonner, who I just saw in Richmond, Kentucky, was our quarterback, and we were really good on offense. We were just okay on defense, but we got in the playoffs, and that was awesome. And then that's when Nick called. Nick had Jimbo Fisher, Pete Jenkins, and Rick Trickett, who, when I was a graduate assistant at Auburn, they were all on the LSU staff at that time, and so I went and interviewed with Nick, and it was a great experience interview. I even told myself, "It's man, if I don't get this job, that's okay. I want it." But at the end of the day, it was a great experience, learning some things and all, and to be able to interview with him. But he ended up hiring me. I was linebacker coach the first year, and then I was the coordinator the next three, and then we went to the Dolphins and I was there for 1 year. I went back to Auburn as Tommy Tuberville's defensive coordinator for 2 years. It was closer to home for my family. We had just had my second son, Whit. My Carol had been put on bed rest. So it was getting closer to our family was really important there. So we were there for 2 years, and that's when Texas called. So we went to Texas, and we were there for three. And then that's when Florida called. So I went to Florida. We were there for 4 years. And again, like I said before, we had a better team than our record in our fourth year, didn't win enough games. And if you don't, the bottom line is it's not personal. At the end of the day, I've got great relationships with Jeremy Foley, everybody at Florida. It just, you got to win games, and it's not personal. There's no hard feelings. They're going to fire you and find somebody else. And that's what happened. And then I got hired at Auburn with Gus Miles on. Again, another good family decision, get closer to home. I had some other opportunities. And then South Carolina called, and I had a great, this is where we're living now. It's in Columbia on Lake Murray. We have a bunch of good friends here. Both of my sons kind of claim Columbia as home. So we felt like, coming back here, we love our lake place here and the people and the surroundings here and a bunch of great Gamecock fans. And then when I got fired here again, don't win enough games. I went to Georgia and had a phenomenal 4 year run there. The first three being basically coaching the secondary and helping Dan Lanning and Glenn Schumann and Coach Smart on the defensive side of the ball. But I think when you have a good reputation for being a good football coach, you're going to have opportunities, regardless of where you are, age wise or anything. If you can still relate with players, which means you can recruit, and you still can coach and develop players, which I feel like track record wise, I've been as good as anybody as far as those things are concerned.
Yeah. Does your wife ever, or your family, I should say, ever try to pressure you to take a job for for a better living situation, or staying close, or don't take that new job, we like it here, kind of thing?
You know what? We've always been sat down as a family. Anytime one of these things have come up and had a discussion, even when our sons were younger, and it was easier when they were younger. It got harder when they got older. But both of my sons are very mature because of the moves. They've had to adapt. They've had to adjust. And that's why I see the maturity of them and how they handle things now much better. And I think that because of the moves, that's helped them. It's been hardest on my wife, Carol, because she's got friends here, and all of a sudden we're moving here, and I'm immersed in my job and what we're doing and the staff and all the stuff. I mean, it ain't no 9 to 5 job now. I mean, this thing's full metal jacket.
Yeah.
So when you start doing it, and then you lose sight a little bit of your family a little bit, but your sons, they get new friends quickly. I think it's harder, especially when you're a head coach's wife. You're very cautious in the friends that you make, because you don't really know if they want to be friends with you or they want to be friends because you're the head coach. And those are all tough decisions sometimes for women, especially.
People never think about the family aspect for coaches and how much strain the family faces from the profession. When you decided to step back to an analyst role so you could watch your son, Whit, play, how did that move redefine success for you?
Great question, Tim. I really went to Coach Smart after my second year, and Whit was going into his senior year, because when we moved to Athens, his first year he broke his collarbone. His sophomore year of high school, didn't really play much at that year, didn't have a great football experience, and Eric Kimmery, who's a very close friend of ours, who coached my oldest son in Columbia and coached Whit his freshman year to a state championship in Columbia, took the head job at Baylor in Chattanooga. The head of the school there is Chris Angel, who he and I went to Georgia together. So very close friends with those guys. And then when Eric went to Baylor, that was a very easy decision for us, for Carol and I, to send Whit to Baylor, and it was the best decision we've made for him. I mean, he thrived and had a wonderful 2 years. He started a quarterback as a junior, won the state championship in a very difficult league, and then the next year, senior year, lost the state championship to crosstown rival Macaulay. But had a great run there for 2 years and narrowed down, really, I would say, between Virginia and Vanderbilt. Ended up signing with Vanderbilt, and but I was going into his senior year. I went to Coach Smart, and I was like, I'm not sure that I can. That he's in Chattanooga. I'm working here again. This isn't 9 to 5. This is a full-time deal. And Coach Smart was phenomenal. He got me on a plane most every Thursday or Friday to make sure that I could see Whit play. I didn't miss a game his senior year, except for they played in Ireland. I didn't go there. but I saw every game he played, and that says something about Kirby Smart and what he
Yeah.
did for me and my family. But he's like, let's work one more year. I'm gonna get you to all the games and just keep working. I said, okay, good, perfect. Well, then Witt's going to freshman, which I knew he was going to get redshirt. I think Witt did too, and he needs to get bigger and stronger and this, that, and the other. But I wanted to kind of be a part of that experience for him because so much of my life I've spent more time raising other people's kids than my own, and my wife's done a phenomenal job. And I kind of looked at it like, I'm not getting these days back. And I'm in a financial situation where we're good. And I went to coach and I was like, hey, Kirby, I'm going to step back. And he's like, well, why don't you just stay on as an analyst? Kind of like what you were going to come in the beginning. He goes, you don't have to be here on game day. You enjoy the weekend with your family, work Sunday through Wednesday, get out of here, help us game plan, and help us be around some of the players that you've recruited. And again, I think I had a special tie with the Malachi Starks and Dan Jackson and some of those guys, and I wanted to be around Michael and Jalen and see how they continue to develop. And so I really enjoyed that and enjoyed being with my family on the weekends. And then we would go to Nashville for home games and may come to the lake if it was an away game, and just enjoyed that part of it. And that's where I kind of started to enjoy being with my family and being around that more than I even like being in the office. Not that I didn't enjoy the office, because Coach Schumann and those guys, T Rob, are, that's some of my closest friends. But, at the end of the day, I just kind of felt like I'm ready to take a step back, look forward to the next step. What that looks like, I don't know, but try and figure those things out.
You think, fast forward, whether it's end of college or as an NFL run, whatever, you think when your sons are done playing, you'd go back to coaching, or do you think you're done?
I don't know. I never say never. I don't want to ever put myself in that way. Hey, you said you weren't going to do it. Well, I didn't necessarily. So I'm never going to say never. I think there's always going to be maybe a possibility of a situation that could pop up that you'd want to be a part of. There's some quality coaches out there that I'd love to work with, and then some others maybe not. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to ever say never. But I'm enjoying what I'm doing right now, and that's having some speaking engagements. I would like to look maybe at TV, and I don't think I'd want to call a game, but I would like to have like a coach's corner, like on a Tuesday or Wednesday night. Any big game, it's 6 or 8 plays that decide the game. And I'd like to give a coach's perspective of what they were thinking. And the connections I have in this league, I mean, even if I'm not sure what they were thinking, I could call a guy and go, all right, what were you thinking here? And and then give my opinion of what it was and what happened. And I just think that's something that we don't really have. And I think it's hard to dive in the details while you're calling the games. I think that we got good enough people doing that. But I'm talking about something during the week that I would love to do, a coach's corner, a game planning, to let people know, because a lot of people, they don't know, they think they know, or they know they don't know. But I think that would be something that would be very interesting.
Yeah, it's actually it could be its own show, and you go Muschamp Mondays or something. It's funny
Yeah.
because Coach O'Leary says the exact same thing. He said people who really know football knows it comes down to like very few situational plays. It's the 4th and 1 on the other team's 40, and do you punt it? Do you go for a long field goal? Do you go for it? And those are he said when he watches a game for enjoyment, those are the things he enjoys. Everything else is kind of just happening, but it's those few situational plays. It's you and him. I should you guys would get along, I think.
Now I've had several conversations with Coach O'Leary, and they've all been very entertaining.
Yeah.
But I tell you, it's just, you look at, explosive play ratio, you either giving them up or you're making them. And you look at turnover ratio. I mean, those are the two things that determine games. If you really look at it, other than blocking a punt for a touchdown or returning an interception for a touchdown, those are in the 90 percentile. But those other two situations, if you're winning those sides of the game, why did they get in man coverage here? Why did they run the man beater here? I mean, what some of the questions that you have as a coach in those situations, you're preparing yourself. It might be a critical 3rd down that they convert to keep a drive going. I mean, what are those situations? Why did they call this? They were expecting split safety coverage. They got middle field man to man. that was a tough conversion on that down. But they did convert it because they got a great passing window, and the guy was able to make a great catch, first man coverage. I mean, I think those things are things that I don't know that the normal person understands, that I think would be great to have an explanation of why it happened.
Yeah, I agree. I'd watch.
Oh, I got one.
Yeah.
If one defensive drill captures Will Muschamp football, what is it and why?
Well, it's got to be a tackling drill, so you got to be able to tackle. At the end of the day, I always tell players this, and I've said this forever because I was brought up in the world of breakdown. Well, the bottom line is I had to tackle a guy at Georgia named Garrison Hurst. Okay, so Will Muschamp versus Garrison Hurst is not an equal battle. He is a much better athlete than me. And I learned this as a player. If I ever stop my feet and break down, I have zero chance to tackle this guy. I mean, zero. But if I run my feet, and I've got a chance to get the guy on the ground. But some form of tackling drill. We always tell the players, don't ever stop your feet and don't ever lose leverage. Okay. What is leverage? Leverage is either inside out or outside in. We call those profile tackles. Very rarely do you have all the tackling is about 90% profile. You're going to be on the side of somebody. But don't lose leverage, meaning don't overrun the ball. Don't underestimate and underrun the ball and let the ball outrun you. Because if you miss the tackle and you run your feet and you keep leverage, you made the ball carrier stop his feet. And our defensive pursuit will catch up. And will never complain about you not losing leverage and not stopping your feet. Now, if you stop your feet, you're wrong. And if you lose leverage, you're wrong. And those are the two things. Very simple. Get the head out of the tackle. We don't want that anymore. But just don't lose leverage on the ball and run your feet. And if you do that, you at least if you miss a tackle, you made him stop his feet. Then we got a chance to get the guy on the ground. But some form of tackling drill, I tried to incorporate in when I was as a coordinator or head coach. I made the defensive coaches do it, but some form of tackling and not losing leverage and not stopping your feet every day. Because if you can't tackle, you can't play. And then by position, critical factors of playing the ball as a defensive back, you got to incorporate that in everything you do. Because the worst thing you can do is not be able to play the deep ball. Can't play deep ball, you'll get embarrassed quickly. And once you put it on tape, man, it's like blood in the water.
Yeah.
They are throwing it. I mean, moonball shots at you every snap. So those things by position, shedding blocks. As a defensive lineman, understanding gap control, understanding getting off a block, playing primary, secondary gaps. I mean, I think all those things by position. But defensive player, you get tackle and do tackles that are realistic to the player. So I would always shed defensive front guys. You got to work on shedding and then getting off and making a tackle. Defensive DBs, they got to tackle in space. Linebackers, shed, get off. You also got to tackle in space.
As a coach, the only real public knock on your record has been the play of the offense. What would getting it right look like if you took another head job?
Oh, wow. Well, they no doubt. I've heard those critics. At the end of the day, I hired an offensive coordinator to run the offense and that to philosophically be on the same page and understand what we've got to do to be successful. And unfortunately, we weren't ever as productive as we needed to be. I think that football continues to evolve and change on both sides of the ball and on special teams. And you look right now offensively. Number one is good matchups. You got to have good players. You got to have a quarterback that's going to make great decisions. That I would always want to have a quarterback that has legs, that can make plays with his legs, because I feel like off rhythm plays are the most difficult plays to defend. Obviously, an efficient thrower that can be accurate with the football, because on third down, you're going to have to be able to convert some in the passing game and be able to throw and be successful. You obviously need a back that can run through tackles and be physical. You want to be big and physical up front, and then have some playmakers outside. And I think if you have that, I like tempo because I think it gets the defense to play faster. All right, but I don't like tempo that is just all tempo. I like to be able to get to the line and be able to dictate the tempo of the game. And we might be going fast, or we might be getting on the line of scrimmage and we're looking back. But I also think there's a little bit of a huddle part of this, because when you play against teams that just line up all the time quickly in 2-by-2, 3-by-1, and you're easy to identify defensively. I think Nick Saban said it after the Michigan game when he was at Alabama. Michigan was a traditional huddle team. And when you don't see that all the times, like I said earlier about Georgia Southern, when you don't see something, it's hard to get really good at it. And it's hard to simulate it sometimes in a scout team look. So I still think that huddling and speed breaking and getting to the ball quick and snapping the ball or maybe looking back and getting in the right look. I just think that the varying tempos of the game, varying tempos of cadence on offense can be really effective to help really good talented guys.
Coach, I have to ask, as an Atlanta Falcons fan, what did you think of them drafting Jalen Walker in the first round? I know you coached him.
I mean, a lot of people were skeptical because when he came out of high school, he was an edge rusher. That's all he did. They played he's a 4-down front guy. And I mean, Troy, this dude can rush. I mean, holy shit. But there's a lot of people that were worried about his length
Yeah.
and worried about him playing on the edges. And, he can play stack backer, but it's not something natural. It's not as natural as him rushing the passer. And that's what really hurt us this past year because Smile Munden got hurt. We ended up not being able to play Jalen on the edge as much as we wanted to. And
Yeah.
that hurt us. But he's got some rush ability, man. He's talented.
That's the knock. The only knock on him is the size. His mentality is great. The leadership's great. His intangibles are off the charts. It's
Off
just
the charts.
people are.
Phenomenal human being. Great mom and dad. Dad's a high school coach. Great
That's awesome.
family. Unbelievable.
You just worry if he's going to get eaten up by an offensive tackle in the NFL.
Hmm. Yeah. But I mean, when he rushes, he's a problem.
Yeah. Did you like that move they did with him and Pierce?
Yeah. I mean, I don't follow pro ball that much, but
Yeah.
I hear being in Athens, you hear all the Falcon fans complaining about pass rush, and
Yeah.
both those guys can rush. I know that.
Yeah.
Can you recall a sideline moment when you realized you'd gone too far? What would you change afterwards?
People, it's amazing. To this day, I will meet people at a restaurant or walking down the street or wherever, and people are like, "Man, you sure are a nice guy." But people see a capture you for 3 hours on Saturday afternoon, and they think I'm a raving lunatic. It's amazing what 18, 19, 20-year-old young men will do to you. All right. But that's not necessarily who you are as a person. And but it is what it is. I don't I probably should have taken a little further on some guys, but at the end of the day, I don't have any regrets. Obviously the old saying in both situations at Florida, South Carolina, if you say I'd have done the same thing, hell, you got your ass fired again. So yeah, would I have changed some of those things? Absolutely, but not my demeanor.
Between the white lines, it's good to let out that passion. Coach, of the many defensive backs you sent to the NFL, who surprised you most, and what's the backstory?
Oh, wow. I think I was writing up a bio the other day from somewhere I'm going to speak. I think I've been fortunate enough to have 9 first-round picks that I've coached. And Troy and I were talking earlier about Earl Thomas. I mean, that guy was unbelievable. I was with your friend, Tim, Dan Quinn, DQ. I was with the Washington Commanders at their mini camp, and we were talking just about some defensive schematic things that we had done before, and I did with DQ, but he started telling Earl Thomas stories about him coming out of the middle of the field and the range that he had, and just the work ethic. Man, the guy was unbelievable. I was down at the Senior Bowl, and I saw John Gruden there, but I also saw Richard Sherman. They were getting inducted to the Senior Bowl Hall of Fame, and Richard got me on the phone with Earl. I'd lost Earl's number, so it'd been a while, but since we had communicated, and it was great to get in contact with him, and unbelievable player. But I've been so fortunate. I was, talking to Troy earlier about when you work at great places, you got a chance to coach great players. And when you're talking in terms of some of the places that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of, and so many great players through the years. Some of my favorite players, and I wouldn't necessarily say first round pick, but Gerard Powers, who I still stay in touch with me at Auburn. Um, I think was 12 years in the NFL, and I think he was a fourth or fifth round pick. I don't know what round he went in, but one of the best just day to day football players I've been around because of his work ethic. And he was talented. I'm not saying he wasn't talented, but just phenomenal, skills as a person, how he handles himself. Now he's a father, and being able to see his family this past spring in Athens was awesome. But I mean, I've been blessed, and Malachi Stark's one of my favorites, who just got drafted by the Baltimore Ravens. Will be a great pro because he is talented, but it's all the off the field stuff that he aces all the check marks. It's almost like I had a scout ask me, "There's no way he can be this clean," and I say he is. He is that he's that special of a person as far as just the character and how he was raised. And Larry and Tisha's parents are phenomenal people. But there's too many to mention, and I hate when I mention a couple because eventually I'll get off this thing and I'll get a text from one of them. Go, well, what about me, Coach? I thought we had a good one. Hey man, I thought you're a great player. It's just hard when you start mentioning them that you don't have enough time to hit all of them, because I've been again very fortunate to be around some really special players, but what makes them different is their mentality, the guy's mental makeup and how he goes about his business, and that's that to me. When you're with an NFL scout or general manager or coach, that's when they say, "Will, does he love the game?" Because I've never tried to tell a coach he could play for you. That's their decision, not mine. But they want to know all the intangibles. How's he in the meeting room? Does he love football? And that means is he willing to do the things he's got to do to be successful? Is he willing to be in the building early? Is he willing to be in the building late? Is he going to do the things he's got to do from rehab or from a prehab standpoint? I mean, all those things are the intangible qualities of a player, and that's what makes them a different player.
Have you coached? I mean, you coached a lot of amazing players. Have you coached anybody that's matched your level of intensity?
Yeah, Roy Miller at Texas. That guy was. I almost thought sometimes we had to calm him down, but he was a great player for us at Texas. But there's been some guys that had a level of intensity. Devontae Wyatt at Georgia, I loved him. He was a guy that had a great motor, played hard all the time. Just guys like that are fun to be around. Kobe Dean, linebacker at Georgia, man, plays for the Eagles now. Uh, just probably one of the smart. He graduated in 3 years in like chemical engineering or something at Georgia. I mean, it was just absolutely phenomenal. Smart, dependable leader. But those guys, they're fun to be around.
Cameras caught you beaming when your son Jackson ran for a first down in the Orange Bowl. What raced through your heart?
Well, Jackson was a walk-on. Jackson had some smaller scholarship opportunities at middle and some different places that he could have gone. But at the end of the day, he actually committed to Colorado State. And I told him, I said, hold on. I said, make sure this is really what you want to do. It's a long way away from home. And he called me about about a day later, and he said, Dad, I think I made a mistake. And I said, well, I said, you need to man up and call these coaches and tell them and tell them the deal. And Coach Smart was fortunate enough to offer him a preferred walk on spot at Georgia. So that was the first time he'd been able to get in action and play. His last game, and it was interesting because we were up in the game obviously, but we still coach like it's tied up, and so I'm over there with the DBs going over some things, and Kirby flipped over and said, "Will, Jackson's going in. You need to come over and watch." And so be able to go back and see him and get some game action and get in the game and have some success, and it was a lot of fun. It was we all had a good time with it.
What a great memory for you guys. Coach, in a sentence or two, can you make the case that dominant defense still wins championships in today's offense-heavy game?
Oof, I may have a hard time with that, Tim. I'll be honest with you. It's really hard to play good defense nowadays, and I equate that from the standpoint of um, I've said this in this interview already. Several, you get good at what you see, and there's so much different offense out there right now. There's tempo teams, there's spread teams, there's two back teams, there's West Coast teams. I mean, there's a lot of different offense. And as an offensive coach or player, you run what you run. You got to learn to block three down, four down. You got to beat man coverage in situations. I mean, I'm not saying it's easy. There's nothing easy about this game, but defensively, it's a whole new ball of wax each week. And your players have got to be able to adjust to the new pass concepts, the new run concepts, the quarterback run game. There's so many different things to me that are very difficult to defend. And certainly you got to be able to play in space because it's a space game now. You got to be able, like I talked to earlier, if you can't tackle and play in space, you can't play. So at the end of the day, you need to have a good defense. I'm not saying you don't, but you need to be able to score points. You have to score points in order in this day and age to be able to win, because I think it's hard to be as consistent. Maybe you look at 2003 when we were at LSU, we were really good. I mean, we gave up about 11 points a game. You look at 2021 at Georgia, gave up about 11 points a game, but we also gave up, I guess it was 30 to Alabama in the SC championship game. So that wasn't a good outing. So it's hard, I think, harder to play more consistent at a high level defensively than it's ever been.
Do you think it's obviously part of it is the rules and protecting the offensive players, and because of those rule changes, your offensive playbook opens up a little bit more, going over the middle and stuff like that. But do you think offenses have also just gotten better? It seems like the plays now that you see these how unbelievably unathletic some of these wide receivers or running backs or tight ends that can take like a Gronkowski or something like that can truly block a defensive end and truly run down the field. It seems like the offensive players have, like, defense was really, if you had a good defense proven by like the Ravens, you could win even without an offense back in the day. Now, to your point, it seems like offense is just, I don't know, maybe taking the reins.
Well, I think there's more better skill at the receiver position probably than there are defensive backs right now. If you just looked at it athletically, I mean, there's some guys that are just really difficult matchups to cover, and it's I think other than the most exerting thing in football is rushing the passer. That's the most exerting thing in ball, and I think the hardest position other than quarterback to play on the football field is corner, and especially in the
Yeah.
National Football League with some of the 5-yard touch rules and those sort of things. I mean, it's extremely difficult to defend a well thrown ball to a really, really skilled, gifted player. And there's a bunch of receivers out there that are really, really good. And even in the college level, I mean, it's hard. And I just think playing man to man against some of those guys is really difficult.
Even the coaching now too, like moving the receivers, like if you had taken Julio Jones 20 years ago, they would have lined him up every single time at the X and run, had a limited route tree. And the Falcons, they'd move him into the slot. They'd move him at running. They'd run him out of the backfield. They don't. It's just, offense has the two things. Offense has the tempo and the you get the pen last, right? You see easier to
Yep.
change the play when you see what they're lined up in and all that. The only thing that can really negate it is just a total dominant defensive line.
I always feel like there's so many keys to being good, but one of them is if you can rush four effectively, you're going to be pretty good on defense. If you can rush four effectively and not have to always pressure, not always have to get in some sort of junk defense, whether it's man to man or whether it's some type of two trap with a 5-man pressure. I mean, when you're able to rush four guys legitimately and play man or play zone and mix coverage, you got a chance to be pretty good on defense and get the ball out of the quarterback's hand. That's the thing that's so different from college and pro. In pro ball, the quarterback's got a time clock. he getting rid of the football. He's not going to hold on to the ball forever. Now, some of these guys can make some plays with Mahomes. These guys are just elite players. They can make some plays with their legs, create off rhythm, scramble, still throw the ball vertically down the field. But for the most part, the ball's coming out. That's why in pro ball, you see a lot more of what we would call Tampa 2 that Monty Kiffin ran in Tampa for all those years and so effective with Simeon Rice, Warren Sapp. They had a four-man rush that was hard to block, and the ball was coming out because the quarterback can't get hit and can't get hurt. In college ball, these guys buy more time, and they create more off rhythm. They create more, and there's not always as an effective four-man rush. And what kills cover two is vertical stretch. And when you run vertical routes against a cover two, and the quarterback's able to hold on to the ball for a long time, you got a problem. So I think cover two has been a good changeup for us in the last 3 or 4 years, but certainly not a staple to change things up on the quarterback.
It's going to take some different schemes for sure. Coach, your dad was both a coach and principal. What piece of his advice do you quote most to your players?
10% of life is what happens to you. 90% is what you do about it. And, don't be defined by your circumstances. I get so frustrated when I hear people talk about, well, he was born in this situation. He should have been successful. He was not born in a very fortunate situation. He shouldn't be successful. No, because I've seen in recruiting for 20 something years, 29 years, and going in some really horrible situations and young men that made unbelievable great lives for themselves because they weren't going to be defined by their circumstances, and they made the right choices and decisions to be successful. I've also seen situations where guys should be successful, and because of the choices and decisions they made, they weren't very successful. So again, don't let your circumstances define who you are. And those would be the two greatest advice that I got from him. And then I was able to see it firsthand as a coach in some of the tough situations I've been in homes and apartments or wherever, and seeing young men that came from very difficult background, and they were tremendously successful. And to see that firsthand was pretty neat.
I asked you, and my dad kind of asked you a similar thing, who your best guys you coached, your favorite guys you coached. How about a game where, you're coaching against somebody and it's just, your whole game plan kind of goes out the window because they're just that talented, or maybe not your whole game plan, but your whole strategy, what you expected.
I'll tell you, when I was at Texas, we played Oklahoma in '08. They had Sam Bradford as the quarterback. Their offensive line, all five guys started within the first 2 years of their NFL career. Trent Williams was one of them, was a left tackle.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Gresham was the tight end. Ryan Bowles was the receiver. Iglesias was the other receiver. They had another guy, I can't remember his name exactly. DeMarco Murray was the running back.
Wow.
And that was back when tempo was just kind of starting, because Kevin Wilson was the coordinator, great football coach, was at Northwestern. And then Bob Stoops, the head coach at Oklahoma, hired him. Josh Heupel was on that staff. Cale Gundy was on that staff. But they played as fast as you've ever seen. And that's one of the problems I've got with college football right now, is we don't have a uniformed officials association. So each league, like the SEC, calls the game a little differently in tempo than the Big 12, than the Big 10 or the ACC. And that's not right, especially when you get in a college football playoff. And
Yeah.
some leagues won't allow defensive stemming. Well, that's an advantage for the defense. And the offensive coaches get mad about it. And I'm like, well, hell, don't go in motion. Maybe we won't stem. So that offense to me was as good as I've faced because of the tempo. And then all those guys played in the NFL, every one of them.
Yeah.
They were really, really talented. We beat them 45-35. It wasn't because of defense. We didn't stop them. I mean, we made a couple stops at the end. Earl picked off a ball at the end of the game to win it. But that offense to me was you better strap it on. It was hard.
Yeah. Yeah. What a stacked team. How about coaching wise? Did you ever coach against a team as a defensive coordinator, head coach, and just maybe the offensive guy was just, I don't know, maybe had such a good plan or took you off guard or anything like that?
I never wouldn't think that, most of the guys that you've called games against you've seen multiple times.
Yeah.
That was the great thing about working for Nick and working for Kirby. And I tried to emulate that where I was there was so much variety on offense. When you got to game day, your players knew how to adjust. So when I was at LSU with Jimbo Fisher was the offensive coordinator, well, we ran spread stuff. We ran two back. We ran 22 personnel. We ran 12 personnel. We ran 11 personnel. We ran 10 personnel. I mean, we were exposed to so much. When you got to game day, if they did something different, which happens a lot when you're really good on defense, because teams don't think they can beat you with their normal stuff, they got to do different things. Our players could adjust to it, and that part of that is the preparation. I would say the same thing at Georgia. As dominant as we were in 21 and 22 on defense, and we get to game day, we didn't know what we were going to get. Now we would run a lot of what we call copycats, so stuff that has hit us in the last 2, 3, 5 years. We're going to rep those things more than we rep what the other offense does, because we're probably going to get stuff that's hurt us before
Hmm.
because we were really good on defense. So I think those are things to me that we really look at.
Recruiting now lives on social media. How does an old school coach who loves film adapt to a social media world?
Uh, it is a little different. I'm not very technically sound, so I do struggle a little bit with that. Um, you know, I feel like that I always tried to have somebody as I got older, somebody a little younger that was in our organization that I could kind of lean on from a social media standpoint to help me out a little bit on things and post and retweet and repost or whatever that you do. But I always tried to have somebody a little younger that could manage those things for me because I have a hard time making sure I'm hitting the right button. More than likely, I would screw it up if I did do the social media. So I tried to let somebody else handle those things for me. But that's the way guys communicate. They communicate that way, and it's hard on guys that I've just never been brought up in that world. I was a little different.
Can you describe the exact moment when you knew coaching, not playing, would be your life's calling?
Well, you might have. What years, Tim, were you at the Falcons?
It was 86 and 94.
All right. Well, you were there then. So a buddy of mine and I was going in my senior year. He was going into his junior year, and y'all had training camp in July. And I want to say Coach Glanville was the head coach,
Hmm.
and we went over to watch you guys in training camp. And I left training camp, and I knew then that I better enjoy my senior year because I had zero chance of ever playing past my senior year. I mean, zero chance of playing past my senior year. I said, these guys are way too fast and too strong and all that business. But um, so at the end of the day, I knew I could just needed to enjoy my senior year, have fun with it. And but I was on that practice day that day. I saw the size and the speed and the violence of that game, and I knew it was not going to be made for me, especially from a speed standpoint. So I knew I needed to enjoy my senior year and figure out what I needed to do, and that ended up being coaching.
So funny, right? What a small world. You guys were in this. You guys were 100 feet
Yeah,
away from each other and didn't know.
yeah. Man, I think Dion was on that team, Prime.
Yeah.
I mean, those dudes, man. It's a different game, and that's what's so hard to explain to some college guy. I mean, I'm like, guys, it's a real deal now. And then I never forget, I was when I went to the Dolphins. We opened up with Denver, and we end up beating Denver. I want to say, I think it was 34-10 or something. We got after them pretty good. and they had a good team. Jake Plummer was the quarterback. Coach Shanahan was the head coach there, and we ended up beating them in Miami. Opening game, Nick's opening game at Miami. And I remember in the locker room, and the game was over. Junior said, "Will, what'd you think?" And I said, it's fast, and you notice it, you feel it on the sideline. Because I remember preseason, I was kind of like, and then when you get in that first ball game, I mean, it is a fast, violent game. And then he looked at me and said, "If we get in the playoffs, wait till we start playing for some real money. Then you'll see some real speed." And I was like, "Whoa!" It's like, man. So that's what I really enjoyed was the professionalism of those guys. It was amazing how much they would bring their notepad in, taking notes. Zach Thomas used to come in on Saturday before our walkthroughs and be like, "All right, what are you thinking? First and 10, 11 person." I mean, just the questions were awesome. You try with the college guys to get them to do that. And some guys understand it and they buy into it. And that would probably what makes them better players. But there's a reason why those guys are so successful and they're able to play in that league for so long is the off the field stuff that they're willing to do.
Yeah, I remember my dad told us a long time ago. Dad, I don't know if you'll remember, but he said the difference between high school to Division One, it's an even bigger gap to Division One to the NFL. And I
Huh.
remember thinking, there's no way. And then, but when you see it in person, football on TV, it's like it doesn't even do it justice. You can see how athletic people are on TV and that stuff, but the guys
Nah.
that people are like laugh and go, "Oh, that guy only ran a 4.5." 4.5 at these guys are 300 pounds running 4.5s now. That is flying.
It's ridiculous.
It's
It is. It is.
it's so
I mean, it's
crazy.
unbelievable. And that I remember, I'll never forget. Whit Marshall was a linebacker for us, played in the NFL for a little while. That's who I was with. And I remember walking off the field that day of practice, and I was like, I better enjoy this year because this is the last year I'm playing football. I said, there ain't no way I can play. I better enjoy it. This is over.
Goldberg was Bill Goldberg, the WWE wrestler. He was a Georgia guy, and he was my dad's backup on the Falcons.
Yeah, he's something.
Yeah, he is.
Man, I remember being at a keg party my freshman year at Georgia. And him and a guy named Scott Adams, big tackle, like 6'7", 320. They come walking in this party, and a buddy of mine on the team goes, "Let's get the hell out of here." And I said, "Why?" And he goes, "Because those two guys are going to whip somebody's ass, and it ain't going to be me and you." I died laughing. But no, he was great. He'd come back through, and he's something else.
Him and my dad, they're still pretty close. He just texted my dad a couple days ago. He's coming out for one more match, I think.
Oh God,
Yeah.
unbelievable. I never forget my buddy looked at me and goes, "Somebody's about to get their ass beat. It ain't gonna be me and you." And I said, "All right, let's get out of here."
Have you ever had a time of adversity that caused you to lean into your faith in God, whatever that may be? I am Christian, and Jesus himself said, "Judge not, lest ye be judged." I ask because I would have gone mad when I received my ALS diagnosis. My faith saved me because I found my true purpose for being here.
Yeah, Tim, I think that I go back, when you do have some tough days at the office and you have to understand your purpose in life and serving the Lord. And I'm a strong believer. So at the end of the day, I've been put on this earth to make a difference in people's lives, in my opinion. Because I look at coaching as teaching, and teaching is the ability to inspire learning. And that's always been something that's been important, not just from a football standpoint, but from a life standpoint. And I always feel like whether it was breaking my leg, breaking my collarbone, getting fired, there was a message behind that. There was a reason those things happen, and then you've got to adjust, adapt, learn, and overcome to move to the next stage of your life. And that's moving on. Sometimes is tough, and sometimes it's a little bit less difficult. But those are all times you've got to fall back on your faith, and you've got to understand that there's something else better for you out there, regardless of the adverse circumstances you're going through.
At the end of each podcast, I like to ask our guests to take a minute to brag about their family. Coach, please brag away.
My wife Carol's been through, I think it's 11 total moves during our marriage, which is amazing. We've been able to survive that. Uh, Blissful marriage, never had an argument. She's figured out I'm always right. So, but no, she's unbelievable. To raise two of I'm biased, our best kids in the world. Jackson, who's extremely graduated from Georgia, and you brought it up earlier. Played at Georgia, had a wonderful time there, and is now in Nashville, working for CAA. My agent Jimmy Sexton, and just really enjoys that, and be able to have both of them in Nashville. And of course, my youngest son Whit signed with Vanderbilt last year, was redshirted, and loves it there. And Clark Lee and his staff doing a fantastic job there at Vanderbilt. But two great sons, and my wife Carol, and of course I still got my two brothers Mike and Pat. Mike's a high school coach in Atlanta at Lovett School, and Pat's a national sales rep for Oriental Weavers. He lives in Rome but works out of Dalton. And my mom, Sally Muschamp, will turn 90 in October. We're going to have a celebration for her at end of July in Mentone, Alabama, where she's living now, and she's still driving, and she's probably tougher than us all put together. So wonderful, wonderful family. Two dogs, Rocky and Rambo. Nothing like two golden doodles, one a miniature and one a normal size. But living here on Lake Murray in South Carolina, hard to beat this life. I'm gonna go hit the golf ball this afternoon. I don't know what you guys got planned, but I'm gonna try and lower my handicap today.
Coach, I want to hit you with. I got to ask one more coaching question, just because I got you.
Okay.
You've coached with probably, arguably two of the greatest coaches of kind of the modern era, in Kirby and
Yeah.
Saban. And I'm not going to ask you to pick one over the other, because that wouldn't be fair, and I'm not going to put you in the hot seat. But who's a coach that you haven't worked with that you would love to? Maybe you've either been a fan of them, or I don't know, maybe worked with them a long time ago, but would love to kind of work with them again.
Just off the top of my head, you know, you hear all the stories. I would have loved to work for Coach Bryant. Just for the success he had at Alabama, and then I would throw into that Coach Dye. When I was at Auburn in '06, '07, and even in 14, Coach Dye would come to the office early in the morning. A lot of times he'd come sit in my office and just watch tape. And he was a great football coach, a great person. I really really enjoyed getting to know him. I miss those interactions, being around him. And then I would say more moving forward. I really love Coach Spurrier. I'd have loved to have worked with him and been his defensive coordinator, because I know we'd have scored a bunch of points. Uh, and then the last guy I would say is Bob Stoops. I got tremendous respect for Bob. I mean, what a great coach. And Mark and Mike, I know better because they're more my age, I guess. But Bob is a fantastic coach, Hall of Fame coach. And those would be the four that I could narrow down to say that I love to have been on the sideline with.
Now on to our final word segment, where we ask our guests a few rapid fire questions. What was the happiest moment in your life?
Being a Muschamp.
What is the biggest adversity you've faced?
My broken leg in high school.
What are you most excited about?
Moving forward with my wife and two children.
What advice would you give your high school self?
Thank goodness they don't have cameras right now, or you'd have never made it through.
Do you, do you have any book recommendations for us or for the listeners?
Oh, I've gotten more into Netflix and the documentaries. I'm a big World War II guy, World War One, the different conflicts we've had since then, and I love watching those documentaries as much as anything.
The name of our podcast is Nothing Left Unsaid. Do you have anything you want to say?
No, I appreciate the time, Tim, you and Troy, and really enjoyed getting to know you guys. Obviously, Tim, looking up to you for all those years and your wonderful career you had at Syracuse, and obviously in the NFL, and what you stand for, and that's as much as anything. I enjoy being around good people, and you guys are good people, and I've enjoyed having the time today.
Coach, thanks so much. Before we let you go, last question, because this is how we got to meet you. At the end of every podcast, we ask our guests, and we ask Coach Fran Brown, who are a couple people that he knows personally. So I'm going to ask you, who are a couple people you know personally that you think we should try to get on the podcast?
Man, well, first of all, Fran Brown is unbelievable. I love Fran. He is. We were when you hire a coach. Coach Smart got us together. We needed to hire somebody who's going to work with me in the secondary, and we kind of started throwing names around. And Fran Brown's name came up, and then you start to research who have they worked with that we could call that we trust that's going to make a recommendation. And so Joey McGuire is the head coach at Texas Tech now. Fran and he worked together at Baylor. So I called Joey and I said, Joey, I need to know about Fran Rhodes. I trust Joey with my life. I mean, I know he's going to shoot me straight. And so Joey said, Will said, I've never seen a coach be able to relate whether you're rich, poor, black, white, purple, green. It doesn't matter. This guy can relate with people, and he does a phenomenal job of relating with staff and players. Nothing could be further from the truth than when he got to Georgia. Absolutely phenomenal, and still doing that now at Syracuse in the job that he's done. And I want to make sure that I said that because
Yeah.
he's somebody I think a lot of. Matter of fact, I'll be up there for training camp at some point with him, and just to be around some ball and good people. And I love Elijah Robinson, their defensive staff, and Coach Nixon, offensive staff. They do a great job as well. But different guys to interview. Woo. Um, you know, I'm trying to think. Kind of losing my mind here a little bit of different guys you could talk to because in the Saban tree you can't talk to assistant coaches. Kirby don't let you talk to anybody assistant coach. Um, I'm trying to think of some different guys might be interesting. Uh, I can't come up with a name off the top of my head. Give me an idea
Yeah.
of somebody you'd be interested in talking to.
No, I mean you've had some unbelievable. I mean you've worked with some unbelievable coaches, coached some unbelievable players. Anybody really? I mean, was Kirby with you when you guys went to the Falcons training camp?
No, he wasn't with me that day.
Yeah.
That's how we got him. He got cut by the Colts, and that's when we hired him down at Valdosta State.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Yeah, he got cut with the Colts, and his dad has passed away. Unfortunately, this past January. Uh,
Mm.
Sonny was an unbelievable man, but his dad was coaching in South Georgia, or he'd been coaching in South Georgia at Bainbridge, and at that time was coaching up at Rabun County, and had called some coaches down at Valdosta, and I didn't even know he had been cut, but uh, I'm glad he got cut, so we got a good secondary coach.
It worked out.
But no, I think Bob Stoops would be a good Coach Spurrier. I bet you get Coach Spurrier on. He'd be fun to talk to.
Yeah. Yeah, those are good ones. Coach, thanks so much for your time. I know you're busy on the golf course now and being assistant coach in your house, so you got to thank the head coach for us too.
I'll do it. I'll make sure I tell her.
If you've ever wondered what makes a great coach, look beyond the championships. It's in the way he shows up when no one's watching. Will Muschamp is a man who's left his mark in locker rooms and living rooms, who's mentored future NFL stars, and stood by 18-year-old kids learning how to be men. Today, he left us with a different kind of playbook, one about faith, resilience, and the kind of leadership that lasts long after the final whistle. Coach, thank you for saying the things that are too often left unsaid, and I will see you in Syracuse at a football game.
Tim, thank you. I appreciate again you and Troy both having me on. But I really enjoyed this conversation. Just thinking about some good memories and the real life authentic things that make a difference in a young man's life.
Thanks, Coach.